Welcome to Curious Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 182.
Yeah.
And this is a special theme episode. But before we talk about that, I thought we'd do a little update because things got really serious for you lately.
Yeah.
So serious, like, okay.
So if you're, obviously, if you're in California, you know that California is burning. And if you're not in California, you probably also still know that California is on fire. I mean, it feels like every couple of years, like the whole state is just on fire. But the crazy thing is, so where we live, not too far from like literally my front yard, backyard, whatever you want to call it. My wife and I were actually at our warehouse in the daytime because it was too hot. Our air conditioner really struggles when the heat gets up really, really high, right? And it was over 100, it was like 109 or 110 degrees. And so our air conditioning just in our fifth wheel just doesn't handle that kind of heat. So we're like, let's go get some work done. Let's relax, maybe watch some Netflix at the office. And we're kind of hanging out. Next thing you know, we're getting some alerts from some people saying like, hey, like, is the fire near you guys? And we're like, fire? Like, what are you talking about?
So real quick, though, we have a lot of new listeners, by the way. So in case you don't know, Mike moved into a fifth wheel with his wife and his kid. Mm-hmm. How many months has it been? It's been a year now?
It's been over a year.
Been over a year, right? And it's been part of this whole reselling journey. And you're off the grid, right? Yeah. So like to get things done, you have to get back on the grid. So you're back on the grid, you're trying to get some work done, and then you got the messages?
Yeah. Well, when I say off the grid, I mean, we have internet service in the sense of like our phones works. Like we get phone, like we could do eBay at our house, but I mean, it's just too hot. So we drove into town and we're getting messages from people saying like, hey, like, are you near the fire? So we're looking it up and we had this feeling there was going to be a fire because it's windy, it's dry, it's over 100 degrees, like 110 degrees. And we just like, there's going to be a fire at some point, you know, in the next couple of days. And luckily my son was actually visiting some family, so he wasn't in town, but we like look out the window at the office and sure enough, like we could tell like the direct direction where our house is, there's just a massive flame cloud. Like immediately, like this is bad. Like this is really, really bad. The amount of smoke that's coming up into the air. And so we get home as fast as we can. And as we're getting home, like it wasn't until we were maybe like a quarter of a mile from our house that we're like, okay, it's over there. But the whole way it was like, it could be us, right?
What's crazy is I texted you because we live in the same area. And I'm like, hey, by the way, man, have you seen that big fire happening? And you're like, you mean this one? And the picture you sent me was crazy.
Yeah. So as we're like pulling up, like we could see flames, like not just like out in the distance. There's like, you know, like you see red or smoke, like we could see the flames up in the air. Like we could see the 20-foot high flames, you know, going for, you know, a quarter of a mile to like almost, you know, half a mile at this point. And this fire was huge, right? And like all we could hope at this point is that the wind doesn't shift because the wind was going towards the west. So it was blowing from the east going to west. So all the smoke was actually going into San Diego. But like where we were, the smoke wasn't actually hitting us because we were just north of the fire and just east of the fire, right? So it wasn't actually like all of the smoke and the wind was going a little bit away from us. And so we were not in the direct path, but we're watching it still kind of come down this hill. And all it had to do was go down this hill and then up another one. And then it's going to be hitting our property. Right. So we were
so close.
I mean, it was really like scary, a little bit like hectic. Like, what do we do? Like, do we evacuate? Okay, the wind's in our favor right now, but it could change, right? It could change on a dime. And we're only going to have like maybe a half hour to get out of here if the wind changes.
And I'm glad you made it. But the crazy thing about it was, you sent me these pictures and then I text you. I'm like, hey, so you guys are evacuating. And you were telling me, we were talking before the podcast, like you can't just like, I was thinking you could just hook up your trailer to like a vehicle and just like take off. And it's not that simple.
No, I mean, it wouldn't be that simple for us because we're like kind of permanently, it's a temporary housing setup. Like we're not on a permanent foundation, but the way we've set up, because we know we're going to be there, you know, 5 years or more. So we've built like a fence around our fifth wheel. We have underneath our fifth wheel, we have a holding tank, which is where like basically it's like an above ground septic tank, which we have someone comes in and pumps it every like 3 months. So when it's empty, like I could pull it out, probably no problem. You know, it's 300 gallons, but it's, you know, just a plastic tank, but it's underneath the fifth wheel and it blocks the axles of the car. And so when it's, you know, getting close to being full, which right now it's like, you know, half full or whatever. I'm sorry, gross, whatever. But like it would be impossible to pull the fifth wheel out. Like we could not do it without having to like literally find a way to chainsaw that thing open and just let the waste go everywhere and then rip it out, which, you know, we paid like $600 for this tank. So between that, ripping up the fence to pull out of there, like we're probably looking at a couple of $1,000s decision and it would require us getting a lot of people to come help us. And so we would evacuate like that. We would maybe make that call if we knew the wind's coming our direction. We maybe have an hour to get out of here. We can try and get through all this stuff as quick as we can. But the problem with fires like that is we're not going to make that decision lightly, right? We had all of our important stuff, like my son's medical equipment and like, pictures and a few things like that packed up in the car, ready to go if we needed to leave. But if the wind shifted and started coming our direction, we wouldn't necessarily have an hour. So if it kept going the way it was, which is what the everything was indicating it was going to keep going the way it was, we were safe. Leaving would have cost us a bunch of money for no reason, right? Yeah. Which at this point, we're glad we made that decision because we are still safe. It has shifted. The wind has shifted some, but not towards us. But again, anything could happen. And so, I mean, that's one of the crazy things about being out there. I think the scariest part, not just scary, but when it comes to like financially is, the fifth wheel insurance counts for like if we got hit, if we're towing the fifth wheel on the road and somebody like ran into it, it's like auto insurance, right? But if it were to burn down, like the fire were to come up and burn down, that property, the fifth wheel insurance wouldn't cover it, right? It'd have to be homeowners insurance, which we are on the property of my in-laws, and I don't think their homeowners insurance would cover like a person parked on their property. You know what I mean? Maybe they would, but it's just a big if, and how much work would it take? And will they cover if it's like, this is a dwelling that is not technically like, part of the insurance. So I have no idea whether we'd be covered or if we'd be stuck with losing our fifth wheel, losing our house, all of our stuff, and not being able to have insurance cover it. Wow. So that was kind of where it was a little scary.
Well, I'm glad you guys are okay. Yeah. I mean, prayers go out to the families that are still being affected. The fire's still blazing, and I don't think it's that much contained yet, right?
No, yeah. Last I saw, it's like over 10,000 acres and still only like 1% contained. So.
Wow. Okay. So our prayers go out to those families. So, hey, just wanted to give you guys a quick update. If you follow us on social, you would have seen the pictures, and you can definitely see that fire was awfully close to Mike and his family. So I'm glad you're okay. I always tell Mike, how'd you sleep through the night? I'm literally, what am I, like 5 miles away from you? And I couldn't sleep well. Mike's like, dude, it would take like 8 hours to get to you, like through a concrete jungle. Because I live like in the town. Like I'm not off the grid like he was. But hey, sometimes you worry about
I mean, it's scary no matter what. I mean,
it was crazy.
It's no matter what, if you're in the area, there's the fear because this area has had fires recently.
A mile from me.
Yeah, and have gone through and destroyed a lot of dwellings and a lot of structures. And so it's no joke. You don't play with fire. And again, that's one of those things that we try and talk about a lot on the podcast is you can only control what you can control, right? And in every situation, you make the best decision you can given the information you have. And you got to stick with it and you got to go, but you can't sit and dwell too much. And of course, there's fear and anxiety with things like that. But, there are going to be things that happen. I've mentioned I feel like the last couple of months, like 2020 has been just a nutty year, right? For everybody. Yeah, but like I've had so many car issues and so many like, windows getting busted out and just someone hit my fifth wheel, like just the most random things have happened. But you kind of have to look at that. And even with business, right? Like sometimes a business deal goes poorly or a purchase, like you buy something and it doesn't work out the way you thought it was going to. And you can only control what you can control. And so not to dwell on those things and let it get you down. Because if you sit there and just dwell with that, because I mean, I would hate to lose my everything, my house and all my stuff. But if you can't control that, you can't control that. And so you can't live your life with a sense of fear and not just doing what you can do to have the best life you can possibly have and move on.
Agreed. So glad you're here. Glad we're recording because this was supposed to be recording that night. And now we're recording on Labor Day.
Yeah, I might be checking every once in a while fire updates. Yeah. So
they do. We'll hear it. I mean, we just heard an eBay sound, but the alert's like louder than that. So, by the way, those of you that are brand new, probably listening and going, what is this podcast about? Well, hopefully you saw the title because this episode is about the reality of retail arbitrage.
Yeah.
So the reason I thought, I always do the pause so Mike can do this. I thought we would do this because we're almost at Q4. We're in September. Q4 is only less than a month away. And the best selling items, in my experience, are retail arbitrage items. Now, we're going to encompass both online arbitrage and retail arbitrage. And we're talking about both Amazon and eBay and Poshmark, whatever platform, because you can do retail arbitrage on all of them. But there is, some kind of distinction between each platform and how they handle retail arbitrage. But, we get questions a lot about our thoughts on retail arbitrage. Do you think there's still money in it? what are some of the dangers, what's the best way to do it. And so I thought it would be appropriate to have an episode on retail arbitrage. So I broke it down into 3 things. I thought we'd start with the good, and then I thought we'd go to the really bad, and we'll do some hustle of the week. And then I thought we'd start with the best. Well, not start, end with the best.
Yeah, so you got to stick around and listen to the whole podcast if you want to hear the best.
There you go. You can listen to all of our non-sponsored ads. All right. Yeah. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. All right. Hey, so the good, Mike, what do you think are some of the good things about retail arbitrage?
I mean, one of the nice things.
Good.
Okay. Here's this one's super superficial, but I'm going to throw it out there and I'll connect it to something more realistic. But it's nice, air conditioning. You walk into a retail store.
You're just feeling that now because it's been like 110 plus.
It's been so hot. But no, I mean, right now, dates for my wife and I kind of consist of going to Target and walking around, right? And so one of the nice things about retail arbitrage is there's a handful of Targets in our area or other stores like that we can do some retail arbitrage at. And so going there and walking around, it's usually a pretty calm and nice experience. You don't have like the rush and the craziness of sometimes at thrift stores and garage sales. And you can do, some personal shopping, take your time, enjoy the cool air. And the nice thing is you always know where they are, right? And a lot of these stores, like sometimes, or not Home Depot, sometimes Walmarts are open 24/7, right? So you can access these stores a lot of times. It's easier to access them than maybe a thrift store, right? Their hours are more consistent. You go to a new town, okay, there's some thrift stores here. Oh, this thrift store's closed on Monday, Tuesday. This one's only open from 11 to 3, right? Like thrift stores can be all over the place. Garage sales, it's like you got Saturday and that's pretty much it. Whereas, hey, it's a Sunday night at 9 p.m. Let's go to a Walmart, right?
Yeah, or even if you want to go Ross, it's like it's Sunday night. Well, I don't know what it is with COVID hours, but pre-COVID, you can get some Rosses like at midnight and you were good. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's a great point. I mean, the nice thing about retail arbitrage is it's consistent. Like you can always go into a store. Now, it all depends on what platform, right? If you're trying to do Amazon, like we talked about with Resale Addicts, like he'll go in and he'll scan. And if he only finds that like 2% of the items in there are worth it, it's not worth it to him. But if you find that you can get items at these off-price stores that you can sell on eBay, and you can, quote unquote, get like replenishables, right? I mean, it's not the same thing as, food or health and beauty. But if you find, an item that you only get one, you only list it once, but you can find like 30 of them, right? It's easy access, right? It's not like you're going to a bunch of thrift stores. And yeah, there is the beauty of that. I will tell you, I kind of do look forward to Q4 in the sense that when I do retail arbitrage, right, I find my few items that I'm looking for. Like I have a list and it's usually about 10 items that I send in. I used to do the whole like anything that I can send in, and I'll talk about this in another episode. But now I try to just find 10 core items which have limited buyers on Amazon and that have a nice ROI. And I hit up every single off-price store I can and pick up as many of those as I can, and I send them in. And it's nice. Yeah, the air conditioning's nice.
Yeah, they usually smell a little better.
There's restrooms in the store.
That's a big one,
right? There's some snacks at the checkout, like when you're waiting, purposely put there, but they're good snacks.
Yeah, don't buy those snacks. Not good fuel for you.
No, they're terrible snacks, but they're good snacks, right? But it's all there, right? It's easy access, right? And if you're in an urban area, it's even easier. So I do a lot of retail arbitrage in Los Angeles, and I would say within, 10 miles, there's probably like 5 to 10 Rosses and TJ Maxx's and Marshalls and DD's Discounts and Burlington's and, you name it, Walmart, Target, whatever you want to find. So if you want to get into retail arbitrage, it's there for you. I believe it's easier access. Now we'll talk about, what are the downfall? What are the downfalls? What is the downfall of having easy access? Now, the other part, it's easy to scale, right? We'll talk about the failures of retail arbitrage. But, one of the things that first things you guys did, right, when we started reselling was you hit up a lot of stores looking for an item, and it was easy to find all those items, right? So now those items weren't profitable. The ones,
yeah, no, that's true. But I mean, I get what you're saying here as far as scaling, because if I go to a garage sale, I might find an item with incredible ROI. So I might pick up something for $5. I could sell it for $100. But that's a one-off item where I'm lucky if I run into one or two of those a year, right? Or maybe in my entire reselling career. And so I might learn like, oh man, this special type of shoe, this is a 1987, whatever, Nike something another, and I could sell it for a bunch of money. Whereas I might never see that shoe again. Whereas if I find that, hey, there's a certain type of shoe that I can buy at Ross or that I can get at, wherever, Marshalls, this shoe I can sell and make a $20 profit. So it's not as high, or maybe even a $10 profit. So it's not as high, but I can pick up 50 of them or 100 of them, one listing, right? And it's much easier to scale in that sense than kind of relying on, hey, this is one big sale, but I can't count on duplicating this over and over and over.
Correct. Or you can get into a place like Burlington had these 50% off sales. I think it was sometime right after, the pandemic was kind of calming down and they had these major sales. And so you would see people on Instagram and they're buying like 5 or 6 carts full of inventory, right? So you can get yourself a ton of inventory really fast, right? So it is easier to scale, right? It's kind of like doing a wholesale deal, except at a store, right? And most of these off-price stores are pretty good about you buying all their stuff. Like they don't give you haggle. Now, the buy box stores do, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Target usually has their, their policies about a limit of something. Walmart will sometimes do that, and some other stores. But generally, the off-price stores, Ross, Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Burlington, you name it, they're okay.
They're happy to get their stuff on.
Yeah, because they're selling clearance. Right, pretty much. They're selling, for the most part, stuff that didn't make it in the retail stores, or sometimes stuff that's especially made for their stores, right? And so they want to offload that merchandise. So it is easy to scale. At the same time, it's also easy to scale because you know exactly what you're looking for, right? You kind of said the same thing with the garage sale. It's not like, right now I'm trying to do a lot of local deals and I'm looking for certain items that I'm selling on eBay that are not retail arbitrage, but it's hard, right? Because I have to, like, for instance, this one item right now that I'm selling within probably 15 minutes of me picking up, I've probably made offers on 50 of them and I've only been able to source 5 of them, right? Really difficult. Now, when I was looking for an example, at one point in time, I was looking for some kind of a trimmer at an off-price store. And there was only like 3 other people on this listing on Amazon. And it was really easy. Like that day, and I know somebody else that's probably listening to the podcast knows about this because they did the same thing, is all they had to do is find that item at every single store. And I was able to pick up, I think last Q4, I picked about 60 to 70. And I was able to sell all 3 of them. It took one listing. I was making $40 profit on each one of them. You do the math, it's about $2,400, and it didn't take much to scale, right? So totally doable, easy to scale. Now, this is the one that I think a lot of people, why they don't do thrifting and why they don't do garage sales. There's a lot less issues when you do retail arbitrage, right? I mean, if you do liquidation pallets or you do wholesale, they might give you issues in the sense that, sometimes you're buying a box or you're buying a pallet but it's, that it's returns, that some of it might be new with tags. For the most part though, I mean, there are sometimes you buy defective stuff at off-price stores. Like sometimes there's Nike shoes that are defected because something's off with the glue or something's off with the color or something. But for the most part, off-price stores, you're pretty safe. Like you're not going to find the random hole. You're not going to find the snag here. It's pretty easy. Like
and if you're getting it from somewhere like Target, like not necessarily an off-price store, but if you're going to Target or Walmart and you get home and it's like, wait a minute, this box is already opened or there's something wrong with it, you just take it back and return it.
Oh, and that's the other thing. I mean, that's really nice. And they actually haven't done much about the returns. I would think at one point, because now we do have a problem in San Diego. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like at Marshalls and some of those stores, they rip off the top of all the boxes, which when I go to other parts of the country, it's not like that. So, but pretty much I have 0 issues when I go. I have had every once in a while where like you'll buy something and it's like it's being sold there because they misspelled like Gucci or something. I don't know, whatever it is. But there's less issues. And then the nice thing is if you don't like haggling, well, you don't have to haggle. Like the price is there. Like you really don't. I mean, you could. I've done it before where I've gone into off-price store. I said, hey, what if I bought it all out? Would you be willing to make a deal? Sometimes they'll make a deal. Sometimes they won't. Right. But it's less issues. So less drama. And so again, right? It's easy to access, easy to scale, list issues. So it sounds beautiful. It sounds great. But let's talk about the really bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bad.
What?
The real bad.
Now, what do you think are some of the really bad?
I mean, one that kind of stands out to me as far as the bad, other than the barrier sometimes when it comes to like Amazon, right? So I do retail arbitrage. I do retail arbitrage occasionally for eBay, right? So I can do decent sales. There's some ROI, but I know that the key is the velocity that comes through Amazon. So there's a little bit of a hurdle there. But the other thing is, I feel like there's maybe a little bit more competition, not in the sense of you're running into resellers every single aisle, right? But I feel like your competition is more nationwide. You go into a garage sale or a thrift store and you find an item, chances are, you're one of the few people, if it's a good item, that's on that listing. Or there might be a bunch of people on that listing, but you're not dealing with people trying to tank a whole market, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're going to retail arbitrage and maybe you find something on clearance, and I'll use clearance as an example because that's oftentimes what I pick up. And it's like, wow, this really is a good deal. I can sell this on eBay, make a $10 profit, and I can pick up 10 of them. Well, if it's clearanced at my target, there's a good chance it's clearanced at most targets, right? And so all of a sudden, that item that I can maybe make a $10 profit, I've picked up 20 of them, and I'm excited because, hey, this will be easy, one listing. Well, now people are tanking the price because they bought them too, and they're trying to get, sell through and get done with this. And before you know it, you're stuck with a bunch of items where there's no more return because the amount of people who are potentially going to jump on that listing is exponentially higher than, hey, I found something at a garage sale, right? So your competition nationwide goes up. Even at off-price stores, again, it's going to vary on regions, but if there's a certain type of shoe that's making it into lots of Marshalls across a region, then resellers all in that region are going to be picking those up, right? If they find that item, and so yeah, you're going to be dealing with that battle there. Now, one thing that might help with that, we've talked about in the past, and I think we used Uno cards as an example, so I'll keep that as the example. But let's say you find something that's like, hey, this is clearance, it's $2. They normally sell for like $12. I'm going to buy 50 of them, right? Well, now there's a whole bunch of people doing that. Be the first on the listing with a whole bunch of them and sell the first several at cost or less, right? So that you're basically breaking even, so that you can get that little thing on the top of your eBay, if you're doing eBay, where it says, 50 items remaining, 12 already sold, and that pushes you up to the front, right? And then you can slowly start raising your price, and people are going to see yours and go, well, here's somebody else who's selling it for $1 cheaper, but I mean, this other person has already sold 50 of them, and they have 50 remaining. And so that could be helpful to you. So that is one way to potentially mitigate it. But again, other people might be doing the same thing. So there is definitely more of a competition in that sense.
Well, it's wild. The fact that there's easy access is probably the worst part about it, right? It's the best part about it, and it's the worst part. So I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, and here's what's crazy. On Purist podcast, at that time, I think we had maybe 2,000 to 3,000 followers. We weren't that much. And I had, I always did my Instagram stories, but I thought I was always being really stealth, right? And I never showed what I picked up, but sometimes I would show a keep a chart. And so keep a chart, those of you listening and don't know what that is, keep a chart is basically, you can go to keepa.com and they show you graphs about a ranking of an item and how much it was at a certain time and how much you can get for it, how many third-party sellers and all this good information. So I remember I showed a keep a chart and it was this Shopkins, I forget what it was, like it was like a Shopkins like house, and you could buy it for 30 it was like at Ross. Yeah, it was at Ross. And you could flip it for probably 100. Yeah, it was 150 at its peak. And so I didn't show the Shopkins item. I did nothing of the sort. You couldn't even when I blurred it, you didn't even see the pink on the box. Like I blurred it so you couldn't even tell the color. So I showed this on Instagram, like, hey, here's an item I found at Ross, right? Literally took probably 2 hours, and somebody DM'd me and somebody said, hey, by the way, somebody in my group. So this was a major influencer who they had a Bellow group. And I think in the Bellow group, at least 300 in the Bellow group found what this item is. And then later they're like, hey, it's this, isn't it? It's this. And I denied it all. I was like, I'm not saying a word, but it was. Like all it took was that one individual to go to Ross, scan every single item, which usually all these off-price stores, big box stores, they have the same inventory, right? It's not like a thrift store. And they finally found the item. I'm sure the item was shared within the Bellow group. And within 3 weeks, that item was selling at about $60 instead of $150, right? And there's still profit. It was like 10 to 15 bucks net profit. But man, things tanked super fast, right? And we can talk about, monopoly for millennials. There was controversy about that a couple of years ago. We could talk about, what is it? Communist monopoly or something like that. They came out.
Something, I don't know.
And that one got so bad it was so in demand that Target eventually said, we're not even going to sell this item anymore, right? So there is an issue. And, you can use software. There's BrickSeek, which a lot of people use. Even with the premium programs, you still run into trouble, but depends what part of the country you're in. So I know some individuals that are in parts of the country that there isn't that much competition. They use BrickSeek and they're able to find a lot of good stuff. But now even like I'll go on, and when I'm on TikTok, there are people just saying, hey, these aren't even resellers. These are just people looking for a deal. The latest one was like, you can get an iPhone X, I believe. Is it X or 10? I don't know. And you could get it for like $100.
I don't use Apple products.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Eventually, you'll come to the bright side or the light side, whatever you call it, the good side. And so, this is on TikTok, and they're talking about using BrickSeek to find this phone. And this was in resellers. And I think it was like 200,000 likes on this video. So you imagine, even if 1%... Right? What is 1% of 200,000?
20,000.
Okay, right. That's all it took. Is it 200? No, it's 2,000. 2,000 people just got on BrickSeek throughout the country. Chances of you finding the item are done. And in San Diego, I don't use BrickSeek because I've had too many instances where it's like, oh, we have 15 even available, and I'll show up to a Walmart and it's all sold out. Now there's Tactical Arbitrage, which is another software. It's a costly one, but if you're able to work it right, you can find some deals. But here's the problem. So Tactical Arbitrage, what it does is it runs a program and you put your search parameters, like how much, ROI and the stores and so on. But if stores only have so many items that are profitable, right? And there's, thousands of people on the software, chances are there's going to be a lot of people that are looking for the same items, right? So you either have to make the choice of, hey, I'm willing to take less money and maybe drop $20 to make $5 a piece in an item, or you can go out there and just scan till you find an item, right?
Yeah, that's good. And that kind of brings up to another point is it takes a little bit more capital in some ways, right? Like you can pick up for relatively inexpensive a pair of used shoes at a garage sale, right? Maybe $2, maybe $5. You're really paying up, okay? So you buy these and then you sell them for $20, $50, right? So your return on investment is often huge. Whereas we talked about the ability to scale. You go to Marshalls or you go to Target and you pick up a pair of shoes, and maybe the profit margin is only 10 or 20 bucks per pair, but you're able to pick up 50 of them, so it works. But to think about that, if you may be spending $60 and you're going to sell it for 80 or 90, and by the time all the fees and all the shipping, maybe you make 10 bucks, okay? So you're spending 60 to make $10. Now that takes a lot more capital. Now, again, the ability to scale is there. So if you can pick up 100 of them, maybe you can pick up 1,000 of them, right? So you have to have that upfront capital, and that return is, even though it's a small return on investment, because you're able to scale it so big, right? Being able to get a 500% return on investment for a $5 item is great, but that's not going to make you rich. You're going to have to do a whole lot of those. Whereas a 5% return on investment on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of capital, well, that's a different story, right? All of a sudden you're talking about some big money coming in.
It's risky.
But it's very risky because you're upfronting all of that capital. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the dangers. And I know that there's some ways to mitigate that as far as, are you willing to go back and do returns? Depending on the store, some stores will do it, some stores won't. Can you at least sell to break even? Can you maybe use it as a loss leader for something else? And if you're like bundling things or making bundles, I mean, there's various ways that you can write it off. Even like, okay, I'm going to donate this now, and now it's a tax write-off. But there's a lot more risk when you've got that small ROI and a big upfront investment. Well,
I'll give you an example of where I lost a lot of capital. I spent $4,000 on a certain product. It was a shoe product, and I thought it was golden. Like there wasn't anybody on the listings on Amazon, and things were good to go. And I sent the item in, and I was making good money. But I dropped $4,000, and I made about $1,000 back within a week. And then I get a cease and desist letter from the company. Now, people have different theories like what to do with this. I'm more of like, I am not going to drop money on an attorney to fight something. And so whatever I can do to just prevent that, I will do. So I ended up getting that letter, and I was like, all right, well, yeah, okay. So I just lost $3,000, right? I made that back my $1,000, lost the $3,000, and it is what it is. Like cease and desist letters, they're a thing. So that is I think that's the really bad, right? Because
really bad.
Because you do hear worse stories. There's a lady that was being sued by Patagonia for selling Patagonia. I know some people that have been hit up because of North Face. I know other individuals that have been hit up by other brands. And I know some that they've gotten like 20 cease and desist letters from a company, and they're like, oh, whatever. Like they'll just throw it away and they keep working. But all it takes is one place to literally follow through on what they say, file with the court, and sue you, and then you have a predicament, right? And again, the situation you got to think about is like, hey, I lost $3,000, but was it worth it to me to maybe get a letter and then have to charge at the least get charged a $5,000 retainer for my defense? It wasn't worth it to me, right? It wasn't worth it to me. And so you really got to be careful. The other bad part too is you can get a Vero thing, right? This happens all the time. We had earlier, we had talked about people that were selling Nike overseas, right? Retail arbitrage. And we figured out that if you do eBay global shipping, since it's okay through global shipping, you're okay. I've had some people kind of say that might not be the case anymore, but I'm not 100% sure. But, people sent over Nike shoes and boom, Vero. And sometimes you can get suspended for a Vero. Right? If eBay thinks it's egregious, or here's the other one, you can get accused of selling counterfeit goods. And that's a really bad place to be. So I have somebody, they're probably listening, but I know someone that sells a ton of DVDs, like a ton of DVDs. And I said, hey, so I don't see you ever selling used DVDs. I don't ever see you selling new DVDs. They're like, Orlando, we're not going to touch new DVDs. I'm like, why? Like, it seems easy money, more profit. He's like, with the new ones, right? They will go after you more if they believe that it's fake or it's counterfeit. And you can get your whole account shut down. And so we're not even going to mess with it. Because at least with used, we ourselves can spot check, make sure everything's good and that it's not fake, even though there's some really good fakes. But, sometimes you have instances where there are very reputable companies that are selling fake items. For instance, I just saw that, I don't know if you know about those Nike Christian Dior's. Mm-hmm. So the Nike Christian Dior's, I want to take a look at how much they are worth thousands. And so a lot of people bought these Nike Christian Dior's thinking that they were legitimate. And luckily, they didn't get them themselves. But right now I'm looking at StockX. The price for these it's at $10,950 for a pair of Nike Christian Dior's. Would you ever drop that? I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
But hey, you know what? All power to you. If you can make it happen and it doesn't cut into your budget, right? We talked about this, and it's all good. It's all good.
If that's like buying a candy bar for you, then that's awesome.
But last month, 4.3 million in fake sneakers seized, including 1,800 pairs of Nike Christian Dior Jordans.
That's nuts.
Right? So you imagine, you think it's all good. You're selling retail arbitrage. You know your stuff is legitimate. You know it's all good. But then you get a claim, and then the time that you got to spend with the claim, the fact that you may end up, having law enforcement get involved, that's just part of I think it's part of the really bad of retail arbitrage that you got to be careful for. So, and then there's the one that we talk about all the time, Amazon. Amazon loves doing this where you're selling something and out of nowhere, boom, they gate you. And then you have to put in a removal order, and now you have to sell on eBay, and you hope to recoup your losses. So, all right. Did we scare everyone from retail arbitrage in that last segment?
Yeah, I mean, if you're afraid of retail arbitrage, good. There should always be a little bit of healthy fear, because then you respect it a little bit more, and you're going to go at it with the actual knowledge you need to mitigate and get through those issues. Right? If you go into it blindly and you're not aware of the problems, you're going to run into those problems, and it's going to be worse. So it's okay, I think, to have a little bit of fear. Anybody who's done retail arbitrage has experienced the problems, but at the end, like we're going to talk about at the end of our episode, there's the really, really, really good parts about it. And so you have to weigh out yourself and decide, is it worth, do the benefits outweigh the cost? And if they do, and if you can make the profit and you understand the risks involved, man, get out there and make money.
Well, and I want to share one more story, just because. So a lot of people always ask, I bought it, right? So why can't I sell it? Right? It's my property, right? And it's a first sale doctrine and so on. But these companies have gotten around that law, and this is how they do it. So you may go into a Marshall's and you'll buy a North Face jacket. And then, because North Face is notorious for this, like I stay away from North Face. And they'll send a letter and they'll say, no, this is, breaking it's basically you are infringing on property, right? It's property infringement because the warranty. So you cannot offer the same warranty that we're offering. So therefore, you are not allowed to sell this product, right? And that's how they get at you. So you think you're all good. You paid for it. Hey, I have the receipt. I have invoices, whatever it is. But if you can't offer the same warranty, which it's weird because you'd think the warranty would carry from the person that bought it.
No, I mean, it wouldn't. I mean, it makes sense that it wouldn't. And I mean, it really makes sense too from a company's perspective. Like if you've worked very hard to build a brand, you want to be the one responsible for that brand. You want to be the one to make sure that customer service is going through you, that the quality checks, all those things are happening through you. And so if a third party is buying your stuff and selling it, well, who knows what kind of customer service they're going to get. So for instance, I buy stuff on Amazon all the time and I know, okay, is this coming from third party? Is this coming directly from a vendor? Right? There's a difference. And if you're buying something, if I buy North Face for the first time from a third party, but I don't realize because it's just the buy box on that shirt, and then I get it and it's like, doesn't fit right, or there's something wrong with it. And I, want something to be done. And then the third party person isn't giving me very good customer service. And it's like, well, I'm done with North Face. What a terrible company. And so there, it does make sense from that perspective.
I love how Mike brings the other side. You're right. I don't like hearing it, but you're right.
No, I mean, and it totally makes sense too. Because I mean, how long is it going to take you to ship it out? What if it takes you too long? What if you do send the wrong product? All those things now say something about North Face, right? Whereas if you're selling it used on eBay, nobody's thinking they're buying it from North Face, right? So there's a big difference when you're selling something new, and that is why. I mean, people can get away with it. You can get ungated and people will use like, well, I've got my Marshall's receipt. I got my Target receipt. But technically the way the Amazon stuff is worded and why they can drop the hammer when they want to is you actually have to have an agreement with that company. You need to be a retailer for North Face or for
even Nike. Though Amazon gives you the wink, right? And they let you send it in.
Hey, I mean, resellers can't complain about that, right? I mean, they give you the wink and the nod and then they let you do it and then they don't. But you could just say
there's an injustice there.
So, but would you rather them say you can no longer sell anything unless you have...
No, I know. We've had this conversation,
right?
On and off air. No, I get it. And we even did that reaction video. You should check it out, by the way. The one about the Amazon empire, Jeff Bezos, whatever. But it was great because they were talking about the terms of service, and in the terms of service, you should read them because there are things you agree to that you're not even aware of. So you really got to be careful. I mean, I do not understand how Marshall's is able to, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I guess Marshall's made that special relationship with the North Face, but then again, what if you get it as a Christmas gift, right? You can always make the argument like, hey, somebody gifted me this. Now, if you have 100 of the same item, can't make that argument anymore, right? But that's the thing. Like, how do these companies know? And that's where the injustice is. And I'm also a big believer in capitalism. Like, hey, I purchased this item. What is the problem? You did the same thing. What is the big deal? The warranty should go with the person because, again, if you stand behind your product, you stand behind your product. Right? So anyways, that's my 2 cents. All right. I just wanted to share that with you guys. So, all right. It's time for one of our favorite segments on the show.
Man, you really yelled that into the microphone.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. Are you going to have to adjust the level?
Yeah, it's going to have to come down. We don't blow people's ears out.
But not on purpose.
Yeah, and it's good. All right. So This isn't one of our fun YouTube
videos,
meme videos
or Orlando's video.
All right, so but it's that time for come on, hustlers! It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah. All right, so our first hustle of the week comes from Brandon. He's on Instagram, and his handle is at.
Whoa. I didn't put it on there. I'm going to look it up real quick.
All right, you'll let us know. So he has an Instagram handle.
I'm so sorry, Brandon.
He has a friend who buys storage units. I just thought maybe his Instagram handle is at. Like maybe he's the only, maybe you are the original. So he buys storage units. His friend does, but his friend doesn't like to deal with clothing. So his friend contacted him. And so Brandon drops $1,000 and picked up some stacks of clothing, vintage and new.
Let me pause it.
We could wait until the end.
I need to say it right now. Brandon, in the eyes of _B. In the eyes of _B.
All right. Thank you.
I want them to know that it was him. All right, go.
No. All right. So he ends up paying $1,000 and picks up some stacks of clothing, vintage and new, several brands such as Nike, Ralph Lauren, Patagonia, Orvis, Gucci, Marmot, Doc Martens, a lot of really good brands, just to name a few. And so he doubled his money within a week with just some of the jackets, and he still has about 20 plus trash bags of neatly folded clothing to sell. Holy cow, Brandon. That's amazing. I mean, that's great when you can have that kind of network where you've got people that you can... They don't do something, but you do, and you have that connection. I mean, it's super helpful. And that just goes to show if you're out there and you're reselling and you haven't built a network yet, start working on that network.
And remember, that's a network reseller to reseller, right? So sometimes we're so competitive, but remember, we don't all pick up the same items. We'll share that in a little bit. But the fact that he had that connection, like that's a lot. Do you see those brands? Those brands are like legit brands. Mm-hmm. So, all right. I will not interrupt Mike for the rest of this podcast.
That's a big claim.
I promise. All right. So next one is Katie. IG handle you go girl 1968. I feel like I already cheered her on right there. Right? It said a friend of hers knew she was a reseller and gave her is that an alert? No. Okay. A friend of hers knew she was a reseller and gave her a 44-pound IBM Correcting Selectric 3 typewriter. So just gave her the typewriter. Listed on Mercari. You know Mercari has the best shipping rates? Mm-hmm. Listed on Mercari and sold for $500. So from free to $500. Buyer tried a return and Mercari ruled in her favor. Right? And that's the thing. Cross-posting is a great thing, right? Because she also sells on eBay, sells on Mercari because the shipping rates are great. And on Mercari, their return policy is different. Now, I know a lot of people are upset about Mercari raising their fees, but you got to look at what platform works for you. So, Katie, you made the right call. You got it for free. You decided to list it. I'm sure that thing, 44 pounds probably was more than that when you packed it, right? And then having to carry that's pretty tough. You're almost at the 51-pound limit where you have to put the sticker team lift. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So that was a good flip. So nice work, Katie. IG handle you go girl 1968.
Yeah, good job. All right, our next one comes from a really close friend of the podcast. So this is Mike. His IG handle is at vintage.games.plus. And I don't know if you've ever actually had a chance to meet him in person yet.
Not yet.
But I've met him a couple of times. I've seen him once at a garage sale, once at a thrift store for sure. Or I think a garage sale, a thrift store, maybe one other time, I think at a storage unit auction place too. It wasn't an auction, but it was just a storage unit.
Really?
Sale, yeah. But anyway, so he found a deal on OfferUp, which is a great place to source. If you're not sourcing on OfferUp, you should try it. Went to pick up a DVD recorder for $275. And Mike does a lot of vintage electronics and electronics, so he knows this stuff. So he picks it up for $275, but the guy also had a Sony disc DVD mega changer, and he paid $75 for the changer. He sold the mega changer for $599 on Amazon, so I think he paid $75. He sells it for $599. And then he sells the Magnavox HDD and DVD recorder with the SD digital tuner on Amazon for $1,849.99. I almost just feel like you're getting greedy there, Mike. Those are some incredible deals you've got.
Well, here's the crazy thing. So we all resell in the same region, mm-hmm. right? Mike's run into him, right? But there's plenty of the pie out there, right? Because have you been doing a lot of sourcing OfferUp lately?
Not recently.
Okay. But I've been doing a ton. And actually, Mike has DM'd me and said, hey, there's a deal here on Harley stuff. Right. And I've actually hit him up about like getting video games. Because by the way, if you're looking to get vintage video games, I'm gonna do a commercial for Mike. Go to vintage.games.plus. He has great selection, legit stuff. And it's funny because you know that one thrift store we like going to, like the one that like you'll always gonna make dough on, and Mike knows what I'm talking about. Like I've seen stuff there and I haven't picked it up, and then I'll see it on his Instagram. I'm like, oh, I know where he got that from, right? So listen, there's plenty out there, right? For me, like the reselling scarcity mindset doesn't work. You just got to find what's good. And so, you know, I think Mike has sent me more leads than I've sent him on stuff, to be honest. But there's so much out there. And so, hey, shout out to Mike. And, you know, I still wonder, Mike, hit me up in the DMs. Let me know. I've shared that story about when I bought those 2 DVD players at the garage sale and somebody on OfferUp was trying to buy them, but I had cash on hand. I wonder if that was you, Mike, because I still think that was you. So let us know in the DMs. But
yeah, that'd be funny.
But I'm pretty sure he watched that story. So, all right. And now we have a call-in hustle of the week.
Yeah, which is great. So if you haven't had a chance to call in to us yet, we love call-in hustles of the week because we could actually play them. So make sure to do that at some point. But here we go.
Yo, what's up, guys? This is Eric from Block Party. We came across a hustle of the week a couple months ago. Someone reached out to us about purchasing some Lucite bar stools at $15 a piece, and we snatched them up and put them up on eBay for about $3,500. We took a best offer before COVID for $2,000, and that person ended up backing out because they lost their job and everything, which was cool. Relisted them. We took another offer in July for about $2,000 on them, and after fees and everything else, we ended up clearing $1,600. This was a manufacturer called Hill Manufacturing. They're out of New York, and they made Lucite furniture, like mid-century modern, stuff like that. So definitely something to be looking out for, that mid-century modern, that like Hollywood glam style, Lucite, any type of furniture really is going to sell for you pretty quickly. Thanks for giving me a chance to call in, and peace.
Nice. Appreciate that.
So furniture, by the way, you know, that to me is the like untapped reselling market. Like I know pretty much every furniture person I know, like, is able to flip stuff really quick, right? You just have to be willing to ship it or connect with another shipper or do it locally. But yeah, and that's not the only thing Eric at Block Party ends up flipping. He has a lot of good flips. So check out the Hustle of the Week hashtag. He's there. That is an awesome flip. Man, $15 and then, I mean, each, but still clearing $1,600 now, you can't beat that. So we've had some major hustles today.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, Eric did also wanted to share. So everybody's been on this kick of Orlando's pronunciation. I think Buttons was one. What's some other ones? Parcel, Merrill, and there's been some other ones. Oh, Cricket was another one. So I am, you know, I do have a master's, by the way. I did pass my GRE, so I know I know my words, but you know, things happen. So I thought this was pretty hilarious. So I want to play same thing. Eric and his wife from Block Party.
Also, I've got a gem for you. My wife, who is German, who is a huge fan of Playmobil, she would like to say something.
Hi, Orlando. By the way, I love you guys. I watch every single episode of your podcast. So, and it's called Playmobil.
Yeah, Playmobil.
Playmobil.
Yep.
I'm going to do that at garage. I'm going to go, do you have any Playmobil?
Playmobil. That's good. No.
Expanding my vocabulary every day. So thank you, everyone sharing your hustle of the week and just sharing life with us.
Yeah, share life with us. That's great. We love hearing from you guys. And speaking of which, you know, there's ways you can contact us on social media, which we haven't talked about yet. So
we haven't, because we've been rolling on this episode. So, hey, by the way, I want to say thank you to everyone. We have hit 20K followers on Instagram. Who would have thought? Like, seriously, who would have thought? And so appreciate all of you. We'll also hit 15K on TikTok. So thank you to all of you that follow us on TikTok. And we are also on Facebook, Pure Hustle Podcast on all three. We're on Twitter, Pure Hustle Cast. We're almost getting to 1K on Twitter. And as always, we are on YouTube. So if you want to check us out on YouTube, Pure Hustle Podcast, hit that bell notification. Actually, first you got to hit the subscribe, then hit that bell notification so you can catch us whenever we drop some videos. And also, you can give us a call like Eric did from Block Party, 619-738-1170 at 619-738-1170, or shoot us an email, puresoulpodcast@gmail.com, puresoulpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And as always, thank you for all the reviews. They keep coming in. Shirts are being bought. donations are coming in. We really appreciate that. We're kind of in a season right now where we're trying to find new sponsorships to help us, financially be able to take care of some of the bills of running the podcast. So any help that you guys always consistently give us is always a huge addition to the podcast. So I want to thank you all for that.
Yeah.
All right. What's your hustle of the week?
So mine is nothing that big, but I want to go back to earlier story from, I think, early last month. I went to a church garage sale. It was the only like garage sale that I went to, or rummage sale that I went to that day. And I picked up like some hair dye. I picked up a bread maker. I picked up the Lord of the Rings trilogy audiobook set, and I picked up like a nice pair of shoes. I've listed everything other than the bread maker, and I've sold everything but the bread maker.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been kind of cool to know that like within just a few weeks, everything that I bought, and man, I walked out of there for, I think, under like $15 or something. I paid like barely anything for all the stuff that I picked up. And the hair product I sold, I think I mentioned that like last week. That wasn't a huge profit, but made like $20 on those. Then sold those pair of boots. The Gore-Tex, really nice. Yoa, or how do you say it?
Oh, the ones you picked up they weren't Vask?
No, they were. I think it's IOWA or
Loa.
Is it Loa?
Yeah, it's an L. Yeah, Loa boots.
Yeah, so I picked up some Loa boots. I sold those. Made like $80 profit on those, and then the audiobooks, I made $50 on those, and I picked those up for like $2. So, I mean, it's just nice to see like when you can, instead of having a death pile, when you list everything and all of it sells, and you're not just like, yeah, I've still got like 10 items from that one, buy, but it's like, yeah, I've gotten rid of everything from that one trip. Like, it's a good feeling. So, hustle of the week, just got it all listed instead of letting it sit in a death pile, and made money on it all. So, it's good stuff.
I love it. It's funny because I've been having those moments too where I'm thinking about garage sales. Like every garage sale we've hit during COVID, I've made my money back and more on every single one. So it gets me motivated to go out. It's just, this last weekend was kind of rough. Like Labor Day weekend, plus it was 112.
It was too hot. There's nobody going to have it.
It was crazy. So, all right. So I figured I'd do a retail arbitrage one, being that I never do that. Just because I'm not a fan of sharing retail arbitrage, because I don't want to just go out there and it doesn't only hurt my sales, it hurts the sales of other fellow resellers. But I think we've had enough time pass, and some videos have dropped about this location too. So, I'm not going to give the location, but I'm going to talk about the product. So early this summer, I ended up finding a Lego set. It was a Lego Friends. It was a glamping, something to the effect. It was like, like you're camping, but you're glamping. And Lego Friends does pretty well. So, it depends on the set. And I found it at this one store, and you can only get this one item at this one store. And I think COVID had something to do with it, right? But the beauty of it is it hit all the check boxes that we talked about why, retail arbitrage is good, right? So it was easy to access, right? So I only had to go to one store. Not one store, meaning physically, but one store like nationwide, right? So I didn't have to go to multiple stores. Right. The other part of it was easy to scale. So this store has no problem with me buying tons of them. So the first time I bought this set, I found it at one store, and then I'm like, Rangi's not bad. There weren't, this is a time when there was no FBA. It was pretty much, unless it was essential. So I did merchant fulfilled. So the first time I picked up 10 just to test it out. And so I recommend doing that sometimes. Picked up 10. They cost, I believe they were $24.99, and I was selling them for $50. So I was making about $15 to $20 net profit on each of them. So I picked up 10. Within 3 hours, I sold them all out. So I made $200. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna keep doing this. So the next day, I bought another 200 sets, and I sold those 200 sets in 5 days. And so if you do the math, right, it's a lot more money, right? 200 times 20. My math is just off, but that's more than 400. That's 4,000, right? What's wrong with me today? Anyways, all right. So then I'm like, okay, how much more can I buy, right? So I bought more. I already made $4,000, right? Net profit, right? This is within 2 days, right? Within 2 days. No, not 2 days, within 7 days, because the second time was 5 days. So within 7 days, $4,000 net profit. You can't beat that. So I went and I bought. I could only find so many more. I bought 100 more units. All those sold, right? So why was this successful, right? So if you take a look at that, right, I made $6,000 net within 2 weeks. It's insane. Like, you can't do that on most 9-to-5s, right? Unless you're a CEO, right? I mean, we're talking about lawyer money too, right? I mean, it's a nice amount for. Here's the thing why it was so nice. One, it was one listing, right? I just had to go on Amazon, list it. I could list it in the store the moment. I usually wait till checkout because I always worry, like, what if I drop one on the way out, or what if they don't let me buy? The other part was it was easy to ship. So all I had to do is I found the 15 by 10 by 6 box on eBay. I purposely knew I was going to buy more. And so they're pretty good about shipping those out, supplies, right? You get them like in a day or two sometimes. So I bought hundreds of those boxes. It cut into my profit a little bit. It was like $1 for each, but it was simple. I just had to put in one box. I just got some paper, to kind of protect it, but it made it okay. And I only had like 5 returns on all of those, right? Because it's a Lego construction set. People are going to take it apart. Usually kids don't want to let go of stuff once they get it, even though you think you should return it. So it was really nice. And on the listing, when I started it, there was only 9 people on the listing. By the time I was done in 2 weeks, there was about 35 people on the listing, right? So my profit margin started, kind of getting kind of tricky. Luckily, it stayed at the 15-20. And here's the danger, though. So the one store I went to was like, hey, we have a whole pallet in back. Would you want to buy this? I'm like, yeah, I'm down. I'm willing to. I mean, it's selling fast enough. So I'm like, how much would it cost me? They're like, it'll cost $11,000. I'm like, oh. Like, I know it sounds crazy, right? If you're starting brand new, but the reason I like Amazon and retail arbitrage is because of velocity. You can get that money back, right? So I'm like, hey, I was willing to spend the $11K on it. But here's the problem. It was a grab bag pallet kind of deal. So it meant that they had all their Legos on there, but it didn't mean that it was that one Lego friend set. Mm-hmm. And I didn't find out until they were about to bring the pallet out. And they're like, hey, we didn't see that it was all of those. It was a hodgepodge. And so this one set, there was only one that made money in that entire store. The other sets you couldn't make money on. But again, it was nice, right? I was able to scale. I was able to make my money fast, right? And sold through, right? All done. And now I hope, if I run into that, if you run into it, it's probably money right now. I'm not sure. I haven't checked the eBay or anything, but I'm sure, if people look for it at Christmas and you held on to it, because that's what I'm finding too, is some toys that aren't being sold no more. It's obnoxious how much you can get. Like if you hold on to toys for a year or two and then try to sell it again, it's kind of crazy. So, all right. So that's our hustle of the week, which leads us to the best,
The best of retail arbitrage.
So one of the best things is usually they're desirable items. I mean, everything should be desirable, but they're more desirable.
Yeah, specifically when you're talking about like, sometimes vintage stuff is very desirable and it has like a group of people who are into it. But oftentimes retail stores are going to have the things that are trending right now, right? So what show are kids watching? What style are the celebrities wearing? Whatever it is, right? That's going to be what stores are selling. So, I mean, we talk about Q4 all the time and everybody thinks toys and there's other things you can sell them, but I think it's just a good example for retail arbitrage in general. But, okay, what's the big, is it some new video game that's out, right? Is it the Nintendo Switch, right? That's the thing that's been really desirable. You can't even get your hands on them. And really the only place to get them at the price that you can make a profit is a retail store, right? So, of course, you can purchase them through eBay, Amazon, OfferUp, but you're not going to get them at the price. So you typically are going to have to do some retail arbitrage to get the most desirable items. And you might have to fight harder. Usually the more desirable they are, the harder it is to find those items in the store. But also that difficulty comes with more money. And I think that's one thing to keep in mind is there's always going to be a correlation, not always perfectly, but there's usually a correlation between the difficulty of getting an item and the desirability of it and the total profit you can make, right? So some items are going to be really easy. You can always pick them up, less profit, right? Other items are going to be really hard to get, but each one might be huge profit. So there's going to be that trade-off there. And again, it's going to come down to how much time and energy and money do you have? What are your limiting factors? But yeah, I mean, I think retail arbitrage is the place to be if you want to get the hot items, unless you're looking at really rare collectible vintage stuff.
Yeah, and that's one thing you need to be careful of too when you do retail arbitrage is that I shared this multiple times on Instagram this last week, that just because it's clearance, right? There's a reason that it's clearance, right? Doesn't mean it's going to sell, right? And so if you are able to get the more desirable items, man, you can make that money really quick, right? And that's part of the things about it's less labor intensive. So for example, with that Lego set, right? It wasn't a lot of labor. I mean, all I had to do was go into that store, fill up my car. The listing was, I didn't even have to take pictures of the listing because it was Amazon. I mean, that's one of the beauties about Amazon is that if there's already a listing created, you don't have to do any of that, right? The only thing you have to do is list it, set your shipping, decide what you want to do, and that's it. You're done, right? That's why a lot of people pivot towards Amazon when they're scaling, because they made a lot of money on eBay, but they see on Amazon they're able to scale things faster and it's less work, right? And if you have a busy family or you don't have a lot of storage space, and you want to do FBA, like it's there for you, right? There is an avenue. So the more desirable items are faster to sell. And the beauty of it is, to me, it's one of the best tools ever is Amazon's ranking. Like the ranking does not lie, right? If there's a ranking, if it's under, for example, this item I was talking about on OfferUp right now, that's not a retail arbitrage item, but I can pick it up and I can sell it in 15 minutes. It has a ranking. I think the last ranking was like 545. So I know if I send it in FBA wise, it's going to sell the moment it hits the warehouse. If I do it merchant fulfilled, it may take a little bit longer, but I have the nationwide prime on that item. It's going to sell for me in less than 15 minutes, right? So I have no problem. For example, the other day, I was running my errands and I found one on OfferUp. I offered the person, I picked it up, I listed it, and it's sold, right? So retail arbitrage can do that for you. Now, the other thing is, outside, when you think about labor intensive, you don't have to do a lot of inventory systems because it sells so fast, right? Where if we sell something that's like on our eBay side, for the most part, like if it's shoes, I have to go to that bin. Sometimes the bin is stacked. I have to find it. I have to go back home. I have to find the right box. I have to pack it. Or in retail arbitrage, you should have a system ready to go. Especially when
you're
it's
talking
Q4.
Specifically though, like if you're doing Amazon FBA, because the labor intensity as far as the shipment and all of that would be the same if you're doing eBay. Like if you're selling those items eBay, whether you got it at a garage sale.
Well, what I mean is if you get like 100 of the same item, it's not as labor intensive because you already have the system in place. If you sell 100 unique different items on eBay, it's more labor intensive.
Harder to find a box and that kind of stuff.
Correct,
I can see
and
that.
pack it. But you're right. With FBA, if you're sending stuff to FBA, like it's beautiful. I mean, I love on Q4 when you sell like 300 items in a day, like not having to pack any of those, like it's crazy. I mean, you do have to initially pack it, send it into the warehouse, but man, the fact that you can all you have to do is like refresh that screen on Amazon Seller Central, like it's nice. So the other one is the ability to make a lot of money in a short amount of time. And I think that's why people are so attracted to it, because it is possible. It really is possible, but it is risky too. Right? We shared this on our interview of Flip, where, for me, I was able to pretty much make all the money I needed to make for the summer and a little bit more in just a few weeks of time. Right? I haven't talked about that item, maybe down the road, but all I had to do is fly into a city, find what stores had this item, pack up all these items, send to Amazon. Within a week, I made all that money back and I made the profit, and I was able to scale really, really fast. And it's no joke. Like you could literally make tens of thousands of dollars within weeks doing retail arbitrage, right? But again, it does take a hustle. It does take the labor. It does take the research. Like you got to factor all those things in. I had to travel to different parts of the country to make it happen, but the potential was so worth it that there's no question. Like if I could have, I told Mike the other day, I looked up, what did I say? Like all the way, I think I was willing to go as far as probably like South Dakota, right? Except this item you couldn't find it in South or North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Washington, all these West Coast states I was trying to find it, right? Because it would have been worth it to me. So if you want to do retail arbitrage, hopefully this podcast gave you an understanding of, here's why you could do it and why you should do it. But here's why you really got to be careful about it. But here's what is really possible with retail arbitrage.
Yeah.
So where are you on your retail arbitrage? I know you're doing some heavy stuff early on, and then you kind of backed away a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I may or may not end up trying to do like Amazon and retail arbitrage with that, but it's just one of those things where it's not necessary for us right now with what we're trying to do. And I think it would be like, I don't want to say getting another job, but it would just be shifting everything to do more, and we may or may not go that direction, but we do retail arbitrage for, random eBay things, and we still get some profitable finds there. But, it's, I don't know, one of these Q4s, we're going to jump in with both feet and do Amazon if it's not too late. So we'll see.
I hear you. And that's the thing. You got to find, we always say it's the model that works for you, right? Because you may see a ton of people making a ton of money, but you don't see all the other sides, right? They don't share like I shared with the fact that I lost $3,000 here. I've lost thousands of dollars on retail arbitrage, but I've also made thousands of dollars doing retail arbitrage. So, it all depends, right? But hey, it's Q4 pretty soon here. I believe it's going to be one of the best Q4s we've seen ever, but who knows? We'll see what happens. I'm going to keep doing it. Hopefully this helped you out with retail arbitrage. But as always, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Please.